Well, joining us this morning is Deputy City Council Speaker Diana Ayala, who will be chairing today's hearing. Councilwoman, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Good morning, guys. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's still unclear how many asylum seekers have arrived in New York City since Saturday. The numbers apparently vary, but who's responsible for processing these people when they get here?
Yeah, DSS is responsible for processing families that are going into the actual shelter system. Families that opt to go to, with family members that may reside in New York City, makes it a little bit more difficult for us to determine what the actual number is. But for the most part, it seems like most families are going through the actual shelter system, which, allows us a better track of that number.
Well, that's just it, though. The city is already dealing with a homeless crisis as it is. Is the shelter system then now overburdened? And do we have enough shelter for these folks that are coming into the city?
The answer is that it is. The shelter system has been overburdened for quite some years now, and we are not adequately prepared. I think that it's difficult to prepare for something that you were not expecting to
Exactly.
happen, in the magnitude that it's happened. When you have individuals coming in progressively, then you adapt. But when we have as many individuals as close to 3,000 in a matter of weeks, that makes it, a little bit trickier, right? To be able to identify the appropriate housing, because you just don't want to place families anywhere, right? You want to place them in shelters and settings that are appropriate for families. So the city has, been working really tirelessly. I know I've been speaking with the Commissioner Jenkins on this issue. The emergency declaration is helpful because it helps expedite contracts to open spaces that we haven't been using. So we're hoping that that'll allow us, an opportunity to not only find housing, but to allow a vacancy rate uh, increase so that we're better prepared for an influx of more families coming in.
So are all these families housed right now, or is there some
Yeah.
place that they're being? Go ahead, I'm
No,
sorry.
families have been housed.
Okay.
All right. Well, the Adams administration is looking to streamline the process for these asylum seekers. And in your opinion, you think the city is handling this issue well? And if not, what needs to be done differently?
I think that the city is handling it the best that they could. And we have to be fair and we have to be realistic, right? No one was expecting this, but we are a sanctuary city and we welcome, anyone that comes to New York City with open arms. And we will do what we need to do to ensure that these families are placed in dignified housing and that they are receiving the resources and the services they need. There are challenges. Every city agency is facing serious staffing shortages, and that's been an issue at the intake center. So we are looking to hear a little bit more from the administration on how they're addressing that issue to ensure that we're processing families as quickly as possible so that we are avoiding, breaking the law and having people sleeping on floors.
One of the things that I've really been touched by is seeing the video of the children that have been arriving. I mean, how traumatic this must be for them. And we're just about a month away from school starting. How are you dealing with the children that are being brought here to the city?
Absolutely. It's traumatizing. These families have traveled for months and then have been put on buses and sent, to states that they have probably no connection to. It's 2 additional days on top of that, and then standing in line in the heat, waiting to be processed. This is a very traumatic experience for anyone, most specifically for children. So we're trying to, get a good sense of where these families are being placed so that we're preparing children. I know I've been speaking to some of my colleagues to maybe hold some like back to school drives and try to help equip families with the tools that they need for a successful school year, whatever that means, and also to ensure that we are providing the appropriate level of mental health services because that's desperately needed now as well.
Well, who's going to be testifying before the Committee on General Welfare during today's hearing?
So we'll be hearing from DSS Commissioner Gary Jenkins and from Moya Commissioner Manuel Castro.
And what do you hope comes out of today's hearing?
Well, I hope that we get a little bit more clarity about what the actual numbers are. I'm not, this is not a hearing to place blame. I think that this is a very unusual circumstance. And I think that as partners in government, it is, our responsibility to gather the facts, demystify, information that has been, put out there that may not be factual, and then figure out what the strategy is and how the council can be helpful.
And just real quickly before we let you go, I know that there are a lot of folks here in the city that want to help in any way they can. What can they do?
I wouldn't advise on, I think that's going to be upcoming. I think you should stay tuned for any information that comes out of City Hall regarding the donations, because I think that it becomes difficult, right, to get
Distribute.
that type of distribution adequately dispersed in the time that it would need to be. So we hopefully that's something that comes up at the hearing today, and we can get more information on that for the public.
All right, Deputy Council Speaker Ayala, we thank you so much for getting up and joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.